Welcome back to MMA Al Dente. I am the guy who picked Cody Garbrandt to defeat TJ Dillashaw. And I'm here to talk about Darren Elkins versus TJ Brown. Elkins is 39 years old, 27-11, and he's got 1 inch of height but giving up 1 inch of reach to 33-year-old TJ Brown, who is 17-10. And this could be an awesome matchup if it all goes well. Elkins, he's one of the grittiest fighters in the history of the sport. Just true fucking grit, this guy. And I've said it before, but to even have a shot at having grit, you need to have toughness and cardio, among other shit. And he's got all the shit, and he is one of the grittiest fighters. Meaning he takes over down the stretch, and he is just grinding when you're looking to get out of there. So Elkins, if you should find yourself tired against him, you're in trouble. That's been his defining trait since he got into the UFC, and he's gotten plenty of comeback victories, losing round 1 and then winning down the stretch. The first half of his UFC career, that's how his fights went, but he went to a decision after dropping round 1. He did that to Diego Brandao and Chaz Skelly and Godofredo Pepe and Hatsu Hioki. And then that's also what happened in the second half of his UFC career, only he was finding finishes there against Michael Johnson, Mirsad Bektic famously, best comeback ever, against Darrick Minner, even against Eduardo Garagori a few fights ago. That was like 3 or 4 years ago at this point, but Elkins was mauling him in general, doing better than him, but then in the end, he was almost knocked out seconds before getting the submission victory. Elkins has always been just one of the grittiest fighters, and if you have any sort of hole in your game and you find yourself in round 2 or 3, Elkins is going to find that hole and exploit it. He's a guy that has wrestling, first and foremost. That is his primary strength as a fighter. He's a relentless wrestler, and again, with cardio machines, as cardio machines go, his wrestling gets better down the stretch as his opponent's technique falls apart. Elkins, he's not the sharpest striker. Not at all. He's never been a good striker. He's got striking. I mean, he's been cultivating a striking game for however many years, 15 years now. But he's got shit that he makes work for him. He's gotten even standing TKOs in the UFC over Carvalho way back when. But Elkins has some tricky strikes that he throws, good combinations, hands and feet, and it's really all just a means to an end. I mean, he can get caught standing up for a full 15 minutes even and throw down, as he's done with Jeremy Stevens, but it's all a means to an end. He wants to shoot in on you. Elkins does have a good shot, and he's also got good submission skills, and in general, good jiu-jitsu skills. The one guy to submit him was Charles Oliveira. No shame there. I think that was his UFC debut. I think that was both of their debuts. If not, it was close. And that's it. We've seen him put in plenty of submissions. Darrick Minner had him in quite a few submissions. But Elkins has never tapped. Only just the once, and it was against Oliveira, who is the best submission artist in MMA history. So there's that. He's been TKO'd 4 times. Once to Ted Worthington. That was on the regional scene. That, I think I've seen a highlight of it, but I forget. But I know I've heard Elkins describe it, and that was just a bad stoppage, he said. He was shooting him for a takedown. He got clipped. He did stagger down, but he was still going forward, and the ref stopped it. Cub Swanson TKO'd him in his last TKO loss anyway, and that was a standing TKO. Elkins was being worked over. He was outgunned and overmatched, but he didn't go out. He was just kind of half out for like 2 minutes straight, so the ref stopped it. But the one guy to really put him out was Chad Mendes. And Mendes, of course, can knock out John Jones. Chad Mendes had that freakish power, and he's the one guy that knocked out Elkins, and then they became teammates after that. And Ricardo Lamas is the one guy to really maul him. Lamas did what Elkins does to other fighters, and he drowned Darren Elkins. Elkins was still fighting and still moving, but Lamas was just too sharp. Lamas has every trait Elkins has, but he was too technically sharp and too athletically sharp. And Darren wasn't able to escape the position at the end of the fight. So Elkins has been TKO'd a few times, but the only guy to really knock him out was Chad Mendes. Now, that's not to say he doesn't have a weak chin, because, I mean, getting staggered and not going out, but getting staggered every fight isn't a good thing either. And as I mentioned, that happened a few times, and it also happened in some other fights. Volkanovski had him dancing around. Ryan Hall, of course, those are some spinning kicks and shit, but he's been staggered multiple times. But he hasn't gone out. And Darren Elkins, you talk about a guy getting rocked, that's not good for you and whatever. It's not something you can do consistently. But there's one guy who can. Darren Elkins is good under fire. And he is, historically, he's been able to take it. And I think if he's in the realm of winning the wrestling battle against his opponent, he's got a damn good shot of winning. And unlike his last fight against Jonathan Pierce, his decision loss, I think he's got a chance at winning against TJ Brown just based on wrestling. TJ Brown is a good wrestler. That's his primary trait as a fighter. But he's also susceptible to being out-wrestled. And Darren Elkins, much like Jonathan Pierce, the last guy he fought, Darren Elkins gets much better down the stretch. Much, much better. And then that's what made Pierce a bad matchup, is Pierce didn't have shit cardio either. He had Darren Elkins beaten wrestling-wise, but also he had those same traits as Elkins. And to be honest, TJ Brown has a lot of those traits as well. TJ Brown is a good fighter down the stretch. It's just that he's a little vulnerable. But he's gotten plenty of finishes in round 3. He's got 10 submission victories in his 17 wins. I want to say 8 of them are arm triangle chokes. If not, it's something like that. That is his move. He is a top game fighter and a good submission artist with top pressure. But of those 8 or so, 7, 8 arm triangle chokes, 4 of them come in round 3. So I don't want to harp on cardio suspicions with TJ Brown because I'm aware he's put away a lot of guys late in the fight. The last of which being Eric Silva in the UFC, which was a great victory for him. But, yeah, that's TJ's thing. He wants to be on top of you. I think he's a little more vulnerable on the ground when someone's on top of him. Not to say he's a fish out of water. I mean, Shailon Nurbandeke had him down. That's how he won the fight. But TJ was still threatening him. Had him in a really tight armbar, pretty tight triangle. So, he's not dog shit at all on his back. But I think if he's on his back against Darren Elkins, he's going to be losing this fight. TJ, he's got sharper striking than Darren Elkins. Much sharper striking. TJ Brown, he hits harder. He's a sharper technician. Even though he throws hooks and whatever, they're cleaner strikes than Darren Elkins. Darren Elkins throws even sloppy hooks. Everything about him is sloppy. TJ Brown is not as sloppy. And I do think he's definitely more likely and more capable of roughing up Darren Elkins. The thing is, TJ Brown is vulnerable himself on the feet. He's been TKO'd 3 times. I don't think I saw one of them. I tried to watch all 3 of them. They happened 2018, 2015, 2013. But I know they happened. And I believe 2 of them are knockouts. But regardless, I know I've seen a good amount of his submission losses, all 4 of them, in fact. And in 2 of them, he was knocked down. His chin failed him, and that's what led to the submission losses. Bill Algeo cracked him with that short elbow in round 2, in tight. That was his last loss. And Trey Ogden rocked him with a stiff jab. Caught him on the button, and then choked him out with a rear naked choke. Both guys. 2 other guys submitted him. Joey Miola, again with a rear naked choke in round 2. But this guy, Joey Miola, did not hurt him. He just was straight up able to out-wrestle him down the stretch. And once they entered the second half of round 2, TJ Brown, who didn't look bad in round 2, but he started to look bad at the end, and Joey Miola strangled him. And then Jordan Griffin also got him out of there in round 2, but that was just a really tight guillotine from hell with no guard, no half guard even, I think, when he locked it up. He just locked up a guillotine and then maybe slowly worked his way to half guard or whatever. But it was just a grip, and he made him tap. And that was a fight that TJ was dominating Jordan Griffin and doing it with wrestling. So TJ Brown, he's vulnerable in a lot of different ways. He could be taken down like he was against Shailen Nurbandeke. He could be outworked on the feet, although I don't think Darren Elkins can do that like Danny Chavez did. And he could be rocked, which Darren Elkins has a better chance, believe it or not, of rocking him than he does of winning a points battle on the feet. But altogether, I think TJ Brown presents a good matchup for Darren Elkins at this point in his career. He's favored to win. I could see why, but I think Darren Elkins wins this fight. I don't think TJ Brown is able to knock Darren Elkins out. I think he can out-wrestle him, especially early, and when he's sharp. But I think overall, it's a fight in which he doesn't put Darren Elkins away, and Darren Elkins outlasts TJ Brown. And Elkins might even win round 1. Typically he doesn't, but if he can take you down, he's going to make sure he finds out in the first 30 seconds. He comes out of the gate like a bat out of hell. So I'm taking Darren Elkins. I think this fight becomes competitive, and then Elkins slowly pulls away with it. I've thrown sprinkles on him winning by rounds 2 and 3, 1,100 and 1,500 for Darren Elkins, and a guy who's been finished 7 out of his 10 losses. Yeah, I threw money on that, no doubt about it. And I played Darren Elkins' money line at plus 150. If I was inclined to pick TKO or submission, I'd go one way or the other betting on Elkins, but instead I just bet on the prop bets. But look, I really do that every fight. I bet on Elkins 2 and 3, even if I'm picking against him. But this time I'm picking him. I think it's a much more winnable fight, and assuming he hasn't completely fallen apart physically, I think he makes it a Darren Elkins fight and takes over. So Elkins is the pick, and Elkins is the bet. Plus 150, which came down from plus 160 yesterday, to be honest. I don't know where the line is going. But, yeah, I'm taking Elkins. Like, share, subscribe, all that horse shit, and check out my other videos.